If you've been enjoying our free The Reason for Everything podcast, please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on all platforms or wherever you get your podcasts.
This idea of reason for everything, things are happening for you and not to you. And coming out with the podcast was kind of the MVP way of me just, instead of sitting on my couch with my laptop up, like trying to, hold the steering wheel, still trying to figure out how to get a business off the ground. I'm like, hey, let me get this podcast started. I'll talk to cool people.
That's a smart
And
idea.
along the way, this is my minimum viable product. So, when I do have whatever idea that comes to me, whether it's in 1 year, 5 years, 50 years, I have a personal brand that I'm building. I'm building a network and talking to
This is the reason why I started my podcast.
I know that. That's why I wanted to talk to you.
That's the exact same reason. Like there was no. So some people are very aggressive about monetizing their personal brand immediately. I was building a company when I started my podcast, right? So there was no need to like really try and like gate content or sell courses or sell coaching, like what a lot of people do, like almost immediately, right? And sometimes like a little bit too soon, they try and sell courses about things they don't even know about. So that's the whole other conversation. But for me, it was like, okay, I don't know if you want to include any of it, but yeah, so we can include all this. But my last company was a broadcast software company, and I knew that there was a path to exit that. And I knew that if I exited it, okay, that's some money, but then you have to start again. So the second you exit, the second like a check comes in or a wire comes in, nobody really cares about you that much anymore, unless you have built something that has changed hundreds of millions of lives. And that is not the norm for most people. So I was like, okay, this is going to be over at some point in my life. I don't know when, hopefully sooner than later. Like hopefully we, build it, it's successful. We exit it, and we did 4 years ago. But I know that if I want to build something else, I'm not going to be retired after this. So I have to start again, and I have to still like find eyeballs again and find an audience that is going to give me feedback on my product or my service. Or if I don't want to build another product, maybe I do want to be a consultant, or maybe I do want to be a coach, but then I got to go find that audience. So I'm like, whatever, I'll pick the Gary V model of build the audience. And then whatever I do in the future, I'll launch products into that audience. Yeah. And that's literally what I'm doing now and what you're doing now. So.
No, I heard it. I think it was actually a Gary Vee quote that I heard regurgitated by Hormozi and
everyone.
Right, everyone.
He's like the OG. So.
100%. And it was basically like, your niche is just what you care about. You shouldn't like go and say, oh, I want to find my niche and build this niche.
Exactly.
And so for Hormozi talked about, for him, it was sales and gyms and everything there. And for you, it's same boat, sales, marketing.
Yeah, but it's evolved too.
Exactly. That's
so even like the first version of my podcast was called Sales versus Marketing, because at the moment I was CRO and I was thinking like, how do I sort of unpack all the stuff that I'm doing in my day to day and then teach it to, it was going to be like somebody coming up in like the sales and marketing arena. But then obviously as companies acquired, sort of my life expands. I start doing some investing. I start focusing more on not just sales and marketing, but like say, for example, I want to help an entrepreneur go raise money or figure out how to hire properly, like all the things that I've sort of figured out in my career. Like then you start to have different discussions with some of the guests you have on, because you want to have a more diverse audience, because you don't want to niche down and pigeonhole. Niching down is great at the beginning if you really do want to monetize immediately. But if you're trying to build like a community, I don't think that going broad is an issue. It will just take you longer to build that community. But for me, it was a long game. Like I have a thesis that I've said multiple times. I will commit 15 years of my life to anything. And I do believe that if you commit 15 years of life to anything, you will be some version of successful at it. Just people quit way too early. So of course that includes like, learning from mistakes and building out feedback loops to see what's working, what's not, iterating, sort of evolving. But if you do have a smart person that commits 15 years of their life to building something and iterating through all the things that don't go right, you're going to be a version of successful at it. So I'm like, listen, I'm not in this for the short term. I want to build an audience that is focused on, like a high performing individual that cares about building a business, that cares about building a legacy, that cares about not only like operational and tactical success, but also like life success. And what does that mean? And it's like, then I bring on like Stephen Kotler, who's written like 12 books on flow state and shit like that. Right. So there's a lot that I've incorporated into my life that now I incorporate into the content that I create, because I also realize that if you are going to be successful in a traditional sense, like make money, there's a lot of other things that you have to include into your life that gets you there. So it's not just about knowing how to optimize like a Facebook ads campaign. Like there's a lot more to it because you have to be able to figure out, okay, how do I optimize my cognitive performance? How do I optimize my energy levels? How do I optimize my focus? How do I optimize my relationships? Because any of those other adjacent topics can sidetrack or basically destroy the chance of you being successful in business or career. So I think that and I also believe that too many people focus on just business or just mindset. If you think about even like Gary Vee it's very focused on like social, for example. Or if you go on the other end of the spectrum, like a Dean Graziosi is almost all mindset and not that many tactical takeaways.
Right.
But I do believe that you have to have that bridge between both to be successful, because anybody who is, even if they don't realize it, has so many hacks to optimize their performance that it's not just operationally sound individuals. Like they are people that have optimized their mindset consciously or subconsciously. So it is both of those arenas you have to play in. And that's what I'm trying to sort of like give over my content. But that's like an evolution of me understanding that as I've grown as an individual. It's not how I started. So
no, I love it. No, it's great. I mean, one of the pieces of content that you put out that really captured me in your funnel, if you will, was, and I want to make sure to keep it sales oriented
Sure.
for whatever that is. So you wrote, master these 3 things and everything else will fall into place: mindset, systems, and connections. And that just spoke with me so it just resonated. And on your bookshelf in the back here, if you've ever watched Success Story, on the bookshelf, you have Atomic Habits back there.
Of course. Yeah.
There's this whole concept of now the optimization trap, and people get so spun up in being so optimal with their time and efficiencies, and you can kind of fall into this. But I'd love to know, as you, as an entrepreneur, as a creator, are optimizing your day-to-day, what does that look like for you? What are the systems that you have in place so that you can put all that stuff to the side and focus on building whatever it is that Scott's building?
Yeah. So optimizing is great, and systems and habits and processes are important, and I'll walk through mine. I just want to premise with the fact that, again, people tend to want to over-optimize. And if you are so focused on over-optimizing and there's a certain kind of personality that things like sort of derail a little bit, then it all goes to shit. Yeah. So it's very much like the analogy is you want to go back to the gym and you've never gone to the gym, and then you go, January 1st, and then you like eat like shit, and then you stop going to the gym because your whole concept of what you wanted to accomplish has been derailed by like a slight little modification to the plan. So I think that it's very important that if you do optimize, like you still give yourself the ability to screw up once in a while and not like
80-20 rule.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. So most of my so the basic things that I do is I'll batch a lot of the stuff that I take on. So I'll batch my emails. I'll check emails in the morning, at lunch, and at the end of the day. So I don't check emails in between. Like I'll batch calls like in between the email checking. I set up all of my content creation in buckets. So if I'm recording podcasts, I'll try and record like 3 or 4 in one day. If I'm writing a newsletter or doing like a whole bunch of written content, I'll block off between 4 to 9 on a Sunday night to do all of my content for the next week. And then I'll schedule it all out. So a lot of my optimization is batching and like allocating time to it. But for example, I'm not going to, like, if something happens on a Sunday night and somebody wants to go out for dinner or whatever, I'm not going to let that derail my whole week. Like I'll reallocate that time somewhere else. So I sort of like move my blocks of activity around based on my schedule, but I always designate that much time to that block of activity because I know that has to be done for that week. Other things that I try and optimize, my other things that are important to me. So like my health and wellness, my physical fitness, I'll go to the gym every single morning at the same time because that's like a routine for me. It like gets me out of bed. I more or less eat the same kind of foods throughout the day, so I don't like overthink. Like I try and like, the whole like whatever, Steve Jobs only wearing like the black turtleneck, like remove all the options that are not really that important to you. So I usually eat the same kinds of foods throughout the day because I know what I like and I know what gives me like the best energy and it doesn't let me crash like halfway through the afternoon. Even most of the clothes that I wear, like I have one brand of V-neck that I really like that I buy like in bulk all the time. I have one pair of jeans that fits just right. So like a lot of the stuff that I don't want to spend energy and time focusing on, I don't. Like it's just easy for me. I know like my one jacket is like a Canali like 46L and like off the rack that usually fits with no tailoring. So like that's what I always buy if I want like a new jacket. So these are all little things that I do. I mean, it sounds stupid, but I try and remove as many decisions out of my life as I have to because it's too, when you're building, it's too much because you're going to be going for 12 hours a day anyways. So you just don't want to have to think about all these things all the time. What other systems? So I block off content creation, block off times when I check email, so I'm not constantly like, scrolling through my phone.
So cute.
Shut off all, like my phone lives on do not disturb. Like I don't take calls inbound ever. If you want to call, it's on the calendar. Like it has to be.
Why is that?
Because my day doesn't have a lot of downtime. So if I have downtime, you know what? Actually, no, I don't. I just never take calls inbound anymore. Like just like off the cuff. Like for me, I like to have my calendar set up. And I think it's a personality thing. Like if I want to talk to somebody, I do want to like, I want to coordinate my day and I want to block it into like either a morning or an afternoon. I just don't like taking ad hoc calls because I find that ad hoc calls, they'll never fit into, when I say it out loud, it sounds like crazy, but it's just how I've structured my day.
Well, I only asked, and I want to double click on this because coming from a sales background, getting an inbound call is like the most exciting thing. And it's like this probably retraining of your brain you probably had to go through.
It is, it's an exciting thing. But then if I'm thinking through, why do I do that? And the reason why I do that is because I want the best possible outcome for every single call. So even in a sales context, if I'm going into a sales call, like I still spend 5 or 10 minutes prepping before that call to make sure that I have all the information in front of me that I need to have the best possible outcome.
Right.
And I don't do a lot of like ad hoc sales call stuff. So if I was like first person responding to like a mission critical something, then yes, you have to be available. But I don't do a lot of that anymore. Right. So maybe in that context, I would change my my view on that a little bit. But right now, if I'm going into a call, I want to prep. I want the best possible outcome. And for that to happen, like I want that blocked off in my calendar so I know when that's happening and I can prep for it accordingly. Yeah, that's just a habit that I've adopted recently. I also find that when there's like just ad hoc calls and they're not blocked off in a calendar, they tend to run longer than they have to, and people tend to ramble. So if they're not blocked off and they're not like segmented as like 30 minutes or 45 minutes or even 15 minutes, people will like, there's a lot of stuff that people just tend to sort of dump on you in an ad hoc call that really isn't required to be solved in that moment. So I found that if almost every call that I have, and this is why I also like coordinating them and putting them on a calendar, like there's agendas for every single call that I have. So we know what we're actually going to be addressing. So it's not just a dump of all the other 50 topics that we could be talking about, but this is not the right time for it. So I find that I've just optimized all of the communication that I have so that I don't have to spend more time on calls than I need to. I don't take a call that, maybe I have 15 minutes till the next call or the next whatever I got to do. A call comes in and then we start rambling, going off, and then goes into the next call, then that's gets pushed back. So I found that it's just not the best outcome.
Yeah. What about when friends call you?
Friends don't call much. I mean, like it's mostly texting, to be honest. A lot of people.
Voicemail guy.
Yeah, I send a lot of voice notes.
Yeah.
I send a lot of voice notes. If like I'll go through my voicemails at the end of the day, and if there's people that I have to call back, I'll call them back, or I'll send a text saying, "Hey, can we schedule the call for tomorrow? Here's my calendar link, whatever." It's not like I don't acknowledge people, but just in the moment, there's nothing that has to be dealt with. There's nothing that's happening in the moment that I haven't scheduled or planned out that has to be dealt with. Like I'm not in that position where there are fires. So for me, it's just like let's plan it out and like let's act accordingly.
Makes sense. No, I mean, like the point, like the interesting thing in the paradox that I've been trying to dig into more is putting systems in place. You mentioned Graziosi at the start, putting systems in place to get into flow state. And it sounds
all of this is to get into flow state.
100%.
Because I mean, like,
it's counterintuitive, It is
counterintuitive, but what is what's the principle where the work expands the time that you give it? I'm blanking on the name of it right now.
It's like not the bucket, the water. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. But basically, if you give work an hour and a half, like you'll find that work expands to an hour and a half. And this is something that I find has been very applicable in my life. So I need to reduce the amount of time that I give tasks, and I need to reduce the amount of time that I communicate with people, because ultimately I think that most people want to spend time doing like easy work or the chatting or the brainstorming and not doing the actual hard work that moves the needle.
Yeah.
And this is just a way that I found that really optimizes that and forces people to limit communication to like mission critical items that are actually going to move the needle forward in whatever project, business, whatever we're trying to do. And it removes a lot of the fluff. And I think a lot of people like spending time on fluff. And I think that I've never really spoken about this like in person before, but it's like a little bit of like a therapy session, like figuring out why I do the things that I do. This only started after COVID.
Interesting.
It started after COVID because I found that people were spending more time on calls than they had to. People were jumping on Zooms and they were dumping all the things that they wanted to figure out that really didn't have to be figured out in that moment on a Zoom call. So I was trying to find ways to like tighten shit up.
Yeah.
So that people wouldn't waste my time, but also their own time, because people would much rather chat than actually get work done, myself included. But I have to if I do that too much, then nothing gets done. So during COVID, I found that people got very comfortable spending lots of time on calls for no reason. So this was like a way to sort of tighten it up a little bit. Like everything's scheduled, everything's on the calendar, everything's blocked off, everything's prepped for, everything's planned. And if we need more time, we get more time. But like, let's like really focus on getting that shit done in the time that we allocate it.
Yeah. So it's an interesting point. I mean, again, I find myself and in my day job balancing the efficiencies that you get from a Zoom call or a virtual call with actually getting in person with someone and getting deals done and actually being across the table from them. And I'd love to explore, your thesis on that, and then how Social Club and, your day-to-day now kind of ties into that, getting people back in person, building networks that kind of maybe went by the wayside in person, at least during the pandemic.
So I've also come to realize how important in-person conversations are after going through, like whatever, 3.5 years of just Zoom.
Yeah.
So the difference, in my opinion, between extra time on a Zoom call or an ad hoc phone call versus extra time spent in person is I do not feel like a relationship is built virtually to a significant degree.
I agree.
I could spend 10 hours on Zoom with you, and it is not the same as spending an hour and a half sitting down over lunch or coffee with somebody. I have no idea why. I can't, like, I'm sure there's like a reason behind, like a very sciencey reason behind it.
Huberman could hop on it.
I'm sure you could totally do it. But I will always spend, this is me going the opposite direction. I will always spend extra time with somebody in person because I feel like that builds a relationship that can truly benefit whatever it is you're working on together, versus extra time on Zoom I feel is wasted. Extra time on the phone I feel is wasted. It's not relationship building. It's virtually, it has to be like tactical, like knowledge transfer for next steps for this project. In person, there's like a true relationship building component where trust can be built, where you can understand outside of the context of business what's going on in that person's life, what they're stressed about, what they're, the humanity of the individual that you cannot get a gauge on virtually. So in person to me is very important. If I want to build a relationship with somebody, if I want to hire somebody new, it has to be in person.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people will listen to this and they'll say, I've hired fine virtually. I can't do it. Like, it's very hard I can continue a relationship virtually. I can't build a new relationship virtually.
Yeah.
Well, there's no level of trust. If we're doing this virtually, we'd have a great time. We'd have a great podcast. We'd probably never talk again.
Right.
But if we're going to do this for an hour and a half in person, we grab a coffee after, whatever. You already have a coffee, maybe get more coffee. There will be this connection, this 100%. Bond that's built that you can't build on. So how does that translate into my work? Well, I mean, like, I'll spend extra time going for coffee, going for meetings, going for lunches, going for dinners. The company that I'm building, the Social Club, it's a private members community, predominantly exited entrepreneurs. There's some like later stage operators, but it's like a YPO, Tiger 21, EO for people that are advanced in their career. Not to say people that are in Tiger 21 are not advanced, but it's a little bit later stage than YPO, for example, or EO. And all of the events that we do are in person, again, because you're building true relationships. It is a cohort or a group of peers that are all at the same level in their life. They're all dealing with similar things. And for you to truly get support from peers, you have to trust them. Because if you're going to say, you know, I just sold my company for $100 million and my wife's cheating on me and I got to get a divorce, but I don't have like, these are wild issues that people actually do deal with. You have to trust the person that you're talking to. And that is not going to be built over a Zoom call or a webinar or any of that shit. So the power of community, I think, is in in-person experiences, because you can build trust, and then you can actually, you can build friendships that, and at the end of the day, like if you want to succeed in life, like, I mean, there's all the adage, like there's all the tropes, right? Like you're the average of the 5 people you spend your time around or whatever. Like those are all very, very true. So you have to spend time around people that are at your caliber and that you can build friendships with and that you can get to know and get the trust. And for some people, that's a very easy exercise. And for some people, it comes naturally. And for a lot of people, it doesn't. So people always crave community. And this is why even in a private members community for exited entrepreneurs, it's still focused on in-person, because I think that's where all the trust is built.
Yeah. To get woo-woo for a second, I feel like...
Let's go.
I'll go there. I mean, I think that it's a matter of trust, and that's from just like the energy someone gives off.
I agree that
you can get as like, you know, deep and granular from like the molecular level, all that stuff that people can get much, you know, deeper on than I can. But I think there's just so much that you can learn about someone just from being in their presence. And again, you can talk about mindfulness and this can talk about being present, but I think that you can't get that from pixels on a screen.
No. Well, when somebody walks in a room, like you feel their presence. For sure. You feel who they are. You feel if, I mean, some people probably are better at reading individuals than others, but you feel like, are they good? Are they a little bit malicious? Are they kind? Are they nervous? Are they confident? Like you feel this when somebody comes into a room. First impression. Yep. It's very hard to gauge that, right? You really can't read people. I mean, and then there's like body language experts and shit like that too. Like that's outside of my expertise, but. So that's where in-person really comes into play. That's what I'm trying to create with Social Club. And that's sort of like how I do all my business. Like there really hasn't been one significant business move, transaction, everything from raising money to hiring somebody, where there hasn't been an in-person component to it.
I think that your emphasis and interest on trust and building trust, there's interesting parallels to your family's background in, you know, criminal justice. Maybe there's something subconscious there for you, but I'd love to get an understanding.
Maybe, I don't know. This is turning into a therapy session.
Yeah, we don't have to do that. Maybe just help me understand better. At what point did the idea for Social Club first pop in your head? Maybe in a nascent form of what it has now manifested out to look like. But what was the first time you thought, hey, there could be something?
Yeah, I think what I saw was I took for granted the community that I had built with my podcast. I had just moved from Toronto to Miami. I had like a fabulous network of people, like truly incredible people that I know, like, it's not to sound pretentious, like friends that sell a company for, you know, $500 million, $1 billion. Like that is a wild group of people. Right. So my landing in Miami was very comfortable because I had the podcast, I had a network of people, and then you meet one person who's local, who's had some success, and, you know, they're not lying about their success, and then you get to know them, and they've sort of like vetted their own circle of friends, so they'll introduce you to their friends, and you build like a really nice network quite easily. That's not the norm for most people. Right. Most people have not spent 6 years building a massive network of people that are all sort of vetted and above board and good, honest, ethical business people, right? So for a lot of the friends that I met that were not part of the podcast, like I noticed that they were incredible people. They had just moved down here, but everybody was siloed. Like nobody had really strong networks because they had come, especially Miami. It's always been a little bit of a transplant city, but even post-COVID, you have all the people that, like, all of my friends are actually not from Miami. Some now, but very few. Most of them are like New York, SF, DC, Ohio, LA. So they all moved down here and they all have great networks back home. And they're all very successful, but they don't have strong networks down here. So I'm first of all thinking like, okay, so there's something there. I mean, I've built this awesome network myself and people are always asking me to introduce them to other people that I know. So that's interesting. But then I also, I mean, I also look at YPO and I look at EO and I look at Tiger 21, and I am building Social Club for me as the avatar, somebody that has exited a company, but I'm a little bit too advanced for YPO because I'm not a current operator. EO is probably like $1 to $2 million revenue. Some people stay in YPO and EO for forever, but ultimately they're not served. So what do I mean by that? Well, YPO, EO are mostly focused on operational. Tiger 21 is mostly focused on wealth, but I also know that people that exit a company care about a lot of other things too. So yes, wealth, deal flow, investment, legacy planning, tax mitigation, all those things. But they also care about longevity and health and wellness. Because the second you make any little bit of money, even if you don't, but the second you do, you definitely care about living longer and being healthier and preventing cognitive decline. Obviously, you want to be around peers that are like operationally excellent business leaders. Then you also care about influence. And I saw that because of all the people that sold their companies that were like, Scott, I want to come on your podcast. I want to do an episode. And when I start talking to them, they're writing a book. They're trying to get on a TEDx stage. They're trying to start their own podcast. They're trying to build their social, and they're asking me all these questions about how to do it. So I'm like, okay, so you've built and sold a company. You've basically like you've won at life. You've done it. But now there's another thing that you want to accomplish, right? So I'm like, knowing the fact that there's, especially in Miami, there's a whole bunch of transplants that are successful, simultaneous to the fact that there's no community that serves 4 buckets. So business, wealth, health, and influence. I'm like, let me put together a community that serves exited or highly successful people, and I will leverage some of the connections that I have to make it an incredible community. I'll bring speakers in that are usually inaccessible because I have access to those. And I'm already being asked to make all these introductions. Plus, I'll make sure that they're served in the way that they actually need to be served as exited founders, and I'm focusing on the buckets of their life they care about.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the genesis for the Social Club. It was a gap in the market. It was opportunity. It was unique unfair advantage. And it was all those things. And I'm like, let's see what happens. So it's going.
It's actually, I mean, I was just digging in this past week on the idea of third-party venues outside of work, or third-party locations for individuals outside of work.
Yeah, like WeWork, or like
more so like back in the 50s, after work, people would have their country club, their local bar, their local diner, the place that they go. There's some term that psychologists have used for it recently. I can't think of right now, but basically talking about how important there's now a bunch of mocktail bars that are opening up, things like that for people to go to, and just talking about how people in today's society just don't have that, especially folks that work from home all day long that don't have a work community. But it's almost interesting. It's an interesting kind of allegory that Social Club's providing, this almost like quasi metropolitan club, quasi like place for people to convene outside of their work and their home.
So I mentioned like 4 very four very obvious buckets of facilitation speakers that I want to. So I mentioned like business, wealth, longevity, and influence. Those are like tangible things that you can say. Like if I go to an event that Scott's putting on, I'm going to get a speaker that's going to speak to one of those 4 things. We're going to talk about one of those 4 items. However, you are very correct in saying that at the end of the day, people just want to spend time with people that they like, that understand the things that they understand, that can have conversations that they like to have conversations. Like, so there's very tactical things that I want to deliver, but at the end of the day, it's like you want to step into a room with people who are who they say they are and have achieved what they say they've achieved, and you want to be friends with these people. And I think that the second you sell a business, you're a little bit guarded about who you let into your circle.
Naturally, yeah.
This is why some of these groups already exist, because you just want to be with peers. So I'm like, peer group that serves somebody who is successful and then provides some additional programming. I think that's a win, because you are going to spend time with people that are at the same level as you. Plus, I'm bringing in programming that's going to serve where you're at in your life. But it's a social play.
Right.
If you can walk into a room, even if I didn't have programming and I just curated a group and we went for dinner every single month, like that's still a win.
Yeah.
Because these are people that you can have a conversation with about, what do I do with my kids? I don't know how much money to leave them. Like I just sold my company. Like, how do I start a family office? That's a wild question to ask, but you don't know, just because you're a great operator, how to do all the other things that you're supposed to eventually do. Just because you're an operator doesn't mean you know how to invest. It means you've been blinders on, head down, building a thing, a lot of hard work, a little bit of luck, probably like 20 years of your life. And now you have a lot of money, and you don't really know who you want to bring in and to help you figure this shit out.
Right.
So you talk to other people that have gone through the same experience.
And it, interestingly enough, ties into your framework of mindset, systems, and connections, right?
Correct. Yes.
Those operators and folks that have exited for tons of money, they've probably mastered mindset to some capacity. Whatever mindset gets them to where they are,
Yes.
they've mastered the systems component that got them to where they are, and then the connections change. To your point, they have
the connections. They know the connections have got them to where they are.
Right.
They know that different connections will get them to where they have to go. So will always be connections, but it won't be the same ones, right? Like you don't need an amazing CMO that knows X, type of marketing better than you do. That's going to take your company and from wherever it is to where it has to go. Like this is a different set of connections that will help you figure it out. But yes, correct. Like they know that that's an important piece of their own success, right? They didn't build this business on their own.
Yeah.
So
you mentioned the point on longevity, talking about Omnipatch and how that journey has tied into.
Sure.
Into that.
So longevity, Omnipatch, health and wellness has been a big part of my life. Basically, my first job ever was coaching tennis.
Oh, really? Huh.
So, I mean, I've been some version of athletic. I used to play a lot of hockey. I played rugby and football in high school, soccer. So I played like a ton of sports. And then after high school, if you're not drafted to, like my sport was hockey, if you're not drafted by the time you're 16, you're not going pro. So like then I got into like weightlifting and all that stuff. So health and wellness, like first of all, so that you feel good, you look good. But then I realized that it started to impact your cognitive performance and your energy levels. That was very important to me. And then of course with Onme was a transdermal vitamin patch. So we actually sold that a year ago to like a wholesale vitamin manufacturer in Davie. But the premise was it was supplementation so that you could get vitamin supplements, minerals without all the additives that usually come with the stuff you get at like a whatever, like a oral at a vitamin shop or a GNC. There's like a lot of stuff there that comes with a lot of fillers and additives and shit that you shouldn't put into your body. So it was like so you can actually absorb a lot of stuff through your skin.
Largest organ, makes sense.
That was the premise, right? And that's the product that we created. But yeah, for me, that was after my last company. So my last company was a broadcast software company. Right. It was called Excitem, or we renamed it to Swift. And then after that, family office asked me to bring Omnipatch to market, and that's what we did. So it was the first time I sort of took my health and wellness passion and then built a business around it. Because I'd never done that to that point. I was always like health and wellness was like something that was important to me. But then I was always building tech companies.
Yeah.
So, that was really it. It was a fun little consumer goods product. That was a massive shift for me. Coming from a tech background, a lot of different things to figure out, both through direct to consumer, as well as through like brokers, distributors, and getting into like actual doors. So that was like a fun entrepreneurial, I don't know, like a learning experience, because you totally switch how you build a business. Instead of onboarding new customers by spinning up new AWS servers, now you have to actually worry about like margins, because your margins are no longer like 95%. So now you have to figure out, okay, so what's my CAC to LTV, and how do I, build in a subscription component and reduce churn and work with UGC and all these different things that I never had to do with SaaS. But I mean, like, that's fun. So you learn a whole new version of entrepreneurship and business. But it played into something that was like super, super important for me. And I think for now, a lot of people, because when I got into health and wellness and I was worried about macros and I was messing around with intermittent fasting and I was trying different supplements, again, to like not only like feel good, look good, but like feel energized throughout my entire day, which is like a very, actually right now with my health and wellness journey, for me, it's, I like to gym every morning, but okay, am I going to still be sharp at like 5, 6 in the afternoon? And I'm not hitting like any slumps. So I sort of like, I optimize my diet for that.
Yeah.
But now it's very popular. Now, people, like post-COVID, people are so cognizant of their health and wellness, right? Like everybody's doing like this peptide or red light sauna or cold plunge. It's funny because I was into this stuff like years ago, but now like the masses are getting into it because they realize that if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to have a very good life. So Onme was like playing into sort of that hype cycle of the market, but I don't think it's going away.
No.
Anything that removes garbage from your body, anything that makes you feel better, live longer, like you're gonna try it out at least.
Yeah. So, as we round out here, one of the things you frequently publish on and you talk about a lot is pursuing your passion / the passion trap. You you had an interesting point. I wrote it down because I didn't want to butcher it, but if you do have a passion in what you're doing, it's easy to sustain it for a long period of time before the money starts to find you. Yeah. And I really like that point about the money starts to find you. And we talked about this on the outskirt, right? You build something that you're passionate about, and the money will, I know that's like the cliche, the money will come, but like, I feel like there's this theory that, you go like, quit your job and the money will come, go pursue your passion. And you wrote about that very recently. But
so you shouldn't quit your job. And first of all, passion is difficult. So this is what I believe about passion. First of all, I think motivation is I don't think motivation is very useful because motivation leaves immediately. The second it gets hard, motivation is gone. With passion, you will be passionate about the thing that you build when money starts coming in. Like you will find passion for it. Like if you started like a dog food business and you're making tons of money, you will start to get super damn passionate about dog food. I think passion is fine, but we have to have this like Venn diagram of passion plus what the market needs. And if we have passion plus what the market needs, and I think that there's like an actual term for
ikigai.
Ikigai, yeah. I had like 5 hours of sleep last night. Ikigai. So it's like what you're good at, what the market needs, and then there's one other component to it. I think it's
what you're good at, what you're passionate about.
Yeah, what you're good at, what you're passionate about, what the market needs. Yeah. So I think that's a very important framework to think about passion, because if you are passionate about something, but you're not good at it and the market doesn't need it, then obviously it's a massive waste of time. So yes, passion is good. Passion will carry you through like those sort of like lulls when things aren't working out, but you also have to make sure that you are setting markers for, is this business moving in the direction that I need it to? And if not, then you're iterating and you're pivoting or you're trying new things or whatever. But you do have to make sure that there's some need for it in the market. So you have to find a way to validate the need for your passion in the market before you sort of go down that path. And also, Simon, you mentioned a point like, don't quit your job. Like I'm a full believer in work your 9 to 5 and then you test from 5 to 9 or on the weekends. Yep. So you figure out some semblance of product market fit for whatever that passion or whatever that business is. And then once you double your income from your 9 to 5, that's when you can pursue it full time. And in 2024 with gig economy, with no code tools, with the amount of, free information you can find on YouTube, like you do not need a ton of money or a ton of resources to start most businesses that can make a lot of money.
Yep.
There is a very interesting graph that shows the amount of employees required. Maybe you can find these graphs and like put them all on the screen if you want, but there's a very interesting graph that shows the amount of employees over a time period that are required to hit $1 million in revenue. And it's like, I'm going to make up numbers, but just to illustrate the point, in 1950, it would be like 100 employees would be required, right? But then you see this graph along the y-axis, like you see this, obviously this line like decrease dramatically to the point where in 2024, you need like 1 employee to hit $1 million in revenue. So that's because of all the access to information and resources, take advantage of geographies and go on Fiverr or Upwork or TalkTalk, whatever it is. But yes, you can do that in your free time. And then once you have, again, semblance of product market fit, and there's different ways to measure product market fit, but if you have a little bit of semblance of product market fit, then that's when you can triple down on your passion per se and like pursue it full time. Yeah. But I'm also a big fan of like building out that MVP of whatever that product or service is. Like if even, for example, let's do a more complex example. If you were going to build a software product and you are not a developer, this is what Buffer did. So Buffer spun up a landing page. They put, I think it was like a type form or something on that landing page saying like, would you pay for this product if we created it? And it described the product. It described all the utility. It described the different price points. And they pushed traffic. The founders pushed traffic to that landing page and captured all the individuals that said, yes, we'll pay for it. This is how much we'll pay. These are the features we want. So you actually have like this zero code, like pre-product, pre-revenue, list of individuals that have already committed to paying for exactly what you say that you're going to build.
Yep.
And then now you've figured out that there's either some product market fit. You can go find a technical co-founder. I always recommend not doing a dev shop. Or you could even take that list and say, like, listen, VC angel, look at this is, I've already found out that there's like 200 people that are willing to pay this price point for the product if we create it. Let's go build it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that costs you like what? You go
$30 a month,
like nothing,
for Squarespace or whatever.
nothing,
yeah.
right? And then maybe a couple ads, but you could also do some organic social, push people to that page as well. The point is, it takes nothing to validate an idea, and then you can start to pursue it. And even then, if you pursued it, I still wouldn't quit your job.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can de-risk the whole entrepreneurship journey like significantly.
Mm-hmm.
So
I love that dog food example. Scott Galloway, Professor G, Prof G, talks about if you go into tax law and you become a tax attorney, no one's passionate about tax law.
True.
But if you go and you become the best tax attorney you could possibly be, and in turn you're able to go and take care of your spouse, your kids,
Correct.
your parents, it's going to be this feedback loop where then you're able to go and stay at the Four Seasons, do whatever you want to do. And then from there, when you go back to your desk as a tax attorney, oh, it's kind of sucks, but look at this amazing lifestyle you get to live. So it's like there's this whole feedback loop that you can get if you go do the best that you can there. And that's kind of one side of that kind of entrepreneurial journey. But I like that idea of also de-risking the entrepreneurial
I like de-risking the entrepreneurial journey. I also don't want people to be static in their career choice. So say you are a tax attorney and you are making money. There's a lot of different entrepreneur or business ideas that can come from that.
Right.
I mean,
what are the legal Zoom guys?
Like,
some lawyer.
Like you can think of technology that solves problems in your own life. That's usually so. The highest success rate of an entrepreneur is somebody who's been in an industry for like 10 to 20 years. And then they find a problem that they're dealing with, and then they go build a solution for that problem. It's like the inverse. Like you always hear, like, you know, entrepreneurs have like a 90% failure rate.
Yeah.
If you solve a problem you've been dealing with for 20 years that no one else knows about, and you go sell it to your peers, it's like a 90% success rate. Yeah. And that's actually what entrepreneurship usually should be. It's not the Stanford grad that goes to build like the next, like whatever piece of tech that's going to change the world. It's you're solving a pain point that is so niche that only you know about, that you have the authority to go solve. And I think that's what people should focus on. But that takes 10 years in a field to understand, 10 to 15 years of experience to understand like what that thing is. But that de-risks, again, it's all about de-risking and then thinking outside the box. If you put in, like, again, 20 years as a tax attorney, there's a lot you can do with that. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different things that you can build to serve your own community. But then you can also, for example, you could forget about even building a product. You could go raise money and you could go acquire other like tax attorney businesses, because now you know what good looks like. Yep. You could go raise a fund and your thesis could be like, listen, we're going to do a roll up of like tax attorney offices and then go sell it to a private equity firm. Like there's so many ways that you can make money if you understand your industry and you have this, again, competitive and unfair advantage based on your experience, which is really what you need as an entrepreneur.
So good.
Thanks, bro.
No, it's like, and then, just so easy. Yeah, the point of static frustration when I talk to my friends that are complaining about their job, I'm like, there's so, like, if you're a talented, hardworking individual, there's so many, even in a bad job market, there's so many places that are looking for good employees. One. Yeah. And then for me, I jumped jobs 3 times in 3-ish years.
Okay.
Yeah. And I got to a job that I absolutely love now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if I hadn't, taken that risk, taken that leap of faith to get to a job that I actually like, by 3 years into my career, I'd tried tech consulting, M&A consulting, product development, and product manager, like a product manager role. And now I'm in a sales job that I absolutely love, but I wouldn't know that if I hadn't, tried these other things.
Exactly.
And that's one side of it. Or, well, if I was in that tech consulting job or M&A consulting job and I didn't like it, you have that 9 to 5 role, and then go and figure out, de-risk, figure out what you like in the entrepreneurial journey as well. But there's so many people have the kind of victim mentality. Oh, my job sucks. My boss sucks. I can't do anything. And they just get stuck in this loop where my response is always just go find something to actually like, whether it's in a new W-2 or, as a side hustle.
Listen, like a lot of people, when you say like spend time after hours, are like, well, I have family, and I'm very sympathetic to that. But there are always hours in a day. And if you are somebody who, I don't think there's too many people in this world that do not watch TV and spend from 5 to 11 only taking care of their kids.
Yeah.
I don't believe that's a reality for most people. Maybe some people have very hectic lives and schedules. Maybe some people work 2 jobs. Okay, sympathetic. But the majority of people spend time with their family, and they do have hours.
Yep.
Most people have leisure time in their life. I'm saying for a season, by the way, if you want to build anything significant, a season of your life will be uncomfortable.
Yeah. I saw that. That's so good.
It's very important to me for people to understand that, because everyone's like, well, I don't like, hustle culture and whatever and hustle porn. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. It sucks. It's like not good to say that for the next 50 years of my life, I'm going to be working 12 hours a day. But if you want to escape from where you're at, or if you want to build something that's significant, there will be a period, a season where it's not comfortable, where there isn't balance. But that's okay, because you're not balanced for a period so that you can have freedom.
I subscribe to that. I site post that. I absolutely love that.
I think that people have to be comfortable being uncomfortable for a period, and that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. So yes, for example, like if you do work 9 to 5 and you commute on both ends, that means you leave at 8 and you come back at 6, and then you got to go pick up your kids, and then you have dinner. And like you're literally learning on YouTube from like 9 to 11 or like 10 to 12 every single day. Great. It sucks, but you know what? You're doing it for a purpose. You're doing it for a reason. And I bet because you're so time constrained, you're going to make sure that every single second you spend on that thing, you're going to be much more focused on it, right? And then you're going to be able to take that away, and you're going to be able to do something with it. So I just mean, like, spend that extra time and commit to it as much as you can, because I think that that's really what's really going to get you out of this victim mentality. When you start to take small actions, that's what really propels you forward. That creates this flywheel effect of activity that's going to get you to where you want to go.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of people that are okay just settling and having their W2.
Which is also cool too.
100%.
That's also cool. But I would also say be strategic about your career.
1,000%.
Like, I mean, if you're going to play the job game, like it sucks, but I mean, you got to be able to bounce around a little bit, and not bounce around and like hurt the company that's paying you. But I mean, make a contract with the company. And this is one of my favorite things to do, especially in a market where people do jump around. Say, I'm going to commit 2 years, 3, pick a number. I'm going to commit 2 years of my life to you, to this company. And for those 2 years, I will give you everything. I will not look for other jobs. But during those 2 years, I want you, director, VP, whatever, to help me get to where I want to go next. And I'm telling you right now, in 2 years, I want to be making 10% more. This is a salary, or this is the title, or these are the responsibilities. Like, let's sign this contract. It could be an actual contract, or it could be like just like a verbal contract. Like, I'm going to go there. Because if you don't help me go there, I'm going to leave anyways. And I'm going to probably be taking interviews like on my lunch break, and I'm going to be half-assing it at work, and I'm going to silent quit, or whatever the hell it's called. So I love that concept of the company and the employee. They make a contract for commitment to work for a period of time focused on future goals for the employee. So it's serving both in the best way possible. And I think it's even more important now, because why would you have loyalty when there's no pension? Why would you have loyalty when there's no benefit? I know for a fact that if you're working for one company and you're getting paid one salary, and you quit and you go to a competitor, you'll get a pay bump faster than if you stay at your own company.
100%.
So if, like, people aren't stupid, so let's play the game people want to play it. And that's where I think you get the most out of people that you actually hire. And that's where people that are getting hired understand, is this a good company that's actually going to serve me in the future? So then you're setting yourself up for future success, and you commit to each other for a period of time, and you know where the end goal is going to be. I think it's a healthy work relationship too. But like, that's my point. Like, if you're going to play the W2 game, like, be purposeful about it, or else again, you're going to be like 50 and you're going to be like a lot of regret and resentment, and I should have. And ultimately, yeah, maybe you don't want to be an entrepreneur, but like, you could have moved farther if you want to. Mm-hmm. Or if you don't want to have more responsibility, optimize the life that you want with the role that you have, and get the most damn money you can, because like, life's tough already, right?
I beg of you, go speak at HR conferences, go start some sort of HR consulting company for Fortune 500s, go build out like an offshore HR business. Cause like, that's the reality of where we're at today. So I've heard you talk about the lack of pensions today.
Well, there are none.
There are none, right?
Yeah.
The lack there, which is none. But yeah, that's just, I think, good advice all the way around. I know we're coming up on time. You just be mindful of your time, and I want to just ask, you've filmed what? 5 years of Success Story. How many episodes is that now?
I think we're at 500 episodes.
500 episodes. You've talked to some amazing founders, some amazing entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Who's someone that you haven't been able to get in touch with? You have an expansive network. Who's someone you haven't been able to get in touch with that we can, hunt down and get them on the show? Call them out. Let's get a clip going. Ready to roll.
I know, right? I mean, like, yeah, I'm gonna shoot for the moon on this. Like, I'll take Elon every day.
Yeah.
I haven't had him on. I want like, I take Mark Cuban. I know he does a lot of podcasts. Yeah. I should probably reach out to him. I haven't yet.
He's down here a bunch, I'm sure.
And he is down here a lot. So I think that like big business personalities, that are not afraid to voice their opinion, because it's not fun when you have somebody who's so guarded and they're worried about, I don't want to be canceled. Like, get out of here. Yeah. We're over that. Yeah. I haven't done anything wrong. You're not going to be canceled. So I think that, I think that like big business personalities, like a Elon or a Cuban or even like an O'Leary, I haven't had these guys on yet. So that's probably where I'll go next. Next year.
Love it. Well, Scott, for folks in my audience that weren't familiar with you before, that want to tap in, where's the best place for them to follow you, get in touch?
You can go to scottdclary.com because everything's there. And all the socials are at Scott D. Clary too, so it's easy.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you, man.